anything that you think is important kind of for people to know in the community around kind of just you as a human being and nutrition? I mean, I know that's such a broad question, but I always feel like it becomes a conversation with a lot of people I talk to, but I'm like, I feel like I could have missed something that felt important to them that I didn't ask.
About me?
Or about nutrition, about anything that you would
Nutrition?
want people to know or
If you're
about.
just like drinking a lot of coffee, really, there's a good chance you're maybe not eating enough. I see this a lot with like anxious, skinny
Yep.
men who can be like quite thin, really just like fueling themselves on coffee and iced coffee and whatnot. And it's not food. And there's a real, I think just this like, oh, like I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling, it's like, I'll just get another iced coffee. It's like you might actually just need to eat more. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to, I think because so people are so afraid of like being fat or whatever that means, or,
Sure.
but
People are
when I
afraid
say
of food. You're right.
afraid of food, I'm like, don't be afraid of, don't, you don't want to say that, but like, I really do. I really don't want people to be afraid of food. I really want people to feel,
Yeah.
you know, like they should be able to nourish their bodies when they're feeling tired and they need energy. That's just something I notice a lot. I'm like, oh, it's a lot of like missing, like not enough calories.
Mhm.
And I think that would actually make people feel a lot better and
Yeah.
being able to perform and show up to their
Yeah.
lives, hopefully.
Sure.
Um,
That is adrenal fatigue too, by the way, right? With all that, yeah. You're
yeah,
right
so
about anxiety, by the way. As someone who has experienced anxiety off and on, it is like, oh, I'll just have another cup of coffee. And it doesn't, you think it feels good, but you don't feel very good. You're just pumped for sound.
I'm doing this thing now where I'm trying not to drink coffee Monday through Friday. And
Wowzer.
because I'm like I'm like working all day and I'm on calls all day and like before my full-time job, I'd be a little bit more like movable on the go. So I could have coffee in it, but it's to have coffee and then to just sit and be anchored
Oh.
at your computer, I could feel my anxiety.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, I need to. So I've been drinking matcha, which still has
Mhm.
caffeine in it, but
Sure.
it
A
hit
lot
me a little
less.
different.
Yeah.
And like Monday, Tuesday of every week, I'm like,
So I hope you're not having like triple the amount of coffee on the weekends, though, since you haven't had it on the weekdays.
I've been traveling. I've been traveling so much. I've been very
Uh,
fortunate that I've had a really exciting sort of busy spring, and it's
I
brought me
love it.
to different places. And I did this triathlon. I went to this beautiful wedding. My friends got married on a farm in Sonoma County. I
Wow.
went to Mexico for my birthday. So it's been a lot.
Yeah, a lot of good though. Like,
A
and those
lot
are
of
all,
good.
you're talking all about community and connection,
Yeah.
though. Is what you just basically described. And it sounds like when you were talking in the beginning, garden kind of fulfilled a lot of that in a career way for you as well. Like it kind of represents you. And can I ask a corny question was, what does hydroponics mean? I know you used a fancy word here, but I don't think everyone knows what that means.
The great question. It means, what does it mean to grow food without soil? So hydroponics, you're growing food
Ah,
with no soil. Uh,
wow.
in typically hydroponic systems are vertical, and without soil, you don't need land. You can do it in anywhere you have space, anywhere. So
Sure.
I'm currently growing 30 different plants in my kitchen in 2 feet of space vertically,
Oh my gosh. 2 feet.
and
Wow.
smart
30?
30 different plants. Yeah.
Wow. What are, you don't have to name all 30, but can I get an idea what some of them would be?
I'm looking at them right
I can
now.
tell. Yeah.
Arugula, Swiss chard, cilantro, yeah, different types of lettuces, so many like endive salad, greens,
Wow.
romaine, tatsoi, bunch of fun different things.
Sure. And so you said it's AI, so it can tell you if it needs certain more water. Like how does that work? And I
It's self-watering. So the AI, so it's plugged in. So I just need 2 feet of space and a power outlet. And so on the base is a 5-gallon tank. And so it
wow.
self-waters multiple times a day. It'll tell you, be like, it's time to add plant food. And you go like, you add plant food, add some more water. And you do that on like a weekly basis. Otherwise, it's pretty self-sustaining. It'll be like, oh, it's time to trim the roots. You pull out the things to trim the roots so they don't, completely
Sure.
them. But it gives you the prompts. The AI is able to manage. So there's cameras on it that are looking. So the lights are there. The AI is managing the light schedule, the water
That's
schedule.
crazy.
And
Wow.
if it's seeing a lot of green pixels, it can tell that like, oh, your stuff's growing really well. It's time to harvest. It's time. And if it sees yellow pixels, it's able to be like, okay, something's off, and like can make suggestions. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it tastes good as well, correct? Like, yeah.
Okay, so we just did it. I'll give like a little company plug. We just completed a third-party independent study because
Okay.
there's a common misconception that hydroponic grown food has less nutrients because it's not grown in soil, and people think
Interesting.
a lot of
Yeah,
nutrients come from the soil. Where what they're saying is what we're pulling from rich nutrient soil is minerals, and so we're kind of mimicking that environment through the plant food. And so we did the third-party study and compared our lettuces
sure.
to grocery store lettuces, and the results were staggering in terms of like how much more nutrient dense this is. And it's not necessarily because it's hydroponically grown versus grown in
Sure.
soil. The main difference is like you are harvesting it and then you're eating it. Whereas like the romaine at your grocery store was grown, then traveled across the
You're
country.
right.
Most people that live on the East Coast, by the
Yeah,
time it gets there, it sits on grocery store shelves, then it shows up in your fridge, and then you eat it. So this can be like 10 days. 10 days if you're lucky. Sometimes it's even longer before you're eating this produce. And so at this point, it's lost a lot of its vitamin C and a lot of these different vitamins.
interesting.
Literally growing it,
Wow.
cutting it, eating it. So that's one of the key reasons you have this access. So similar, you would have probably very similar results if you had an outdoor garden.
Sure.
But a
Which
lot of people don't do that.
I was gonna say it's a lot of work and it's not realistic, right? Like you live in the big cities, right? Like it's not when you say your friends got married on a farm, like how cool, right? And how many people can do that, right? Yeah, it is your hope. I mean, this sounds very like early stage, that's not a startup, but like it's your hope that eventually this is something that gets into like most people's homes.
I think so. I think there's so many reasons why we're positive for it to be in everyone's home. It's never going to fully replace your grocery store, like shit,
Sure.
because like it's not growing eggs, and like like you're not going to get an orange off of this thing. Like
No.
that's still something that comes off of a tree. But anything, it's long you can't grow anything like a tree sprouting fruit on this thing, or anything that's like a potato or a carrot. But
Okay.
pretty much everything else you can grow on here. You can grow flowers, you can grow herbs, you can grow lettuces, greens, tomatoes,
Wow.
cauliflower, eggplant, like lots of fun different things. Um,
Jeez.
we just introduced mini pumpkins. So if people put them in now, they'll be ready by Halloween.
That's so cute. Wow. I don't know for you. I mean, I like, as you can see, plants. I keep looking at the one behind you, wondering if it's real or not.
This is a real plant.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, that is impressive, by the way, is what I was wondering. But there is something therapeutic about taking care of something. Yeah.
It's a big part of it that you're bringing nature into your home, and whether you do that through plants or whether you do that through an indoor garden with hydroponics, or whether you do that with you are fortunate enough to have an outdoor space and you decide to garden. Like, let's be real, most people have their outdoor gardens and aren't like, well, this kale, I grew this kale, and like you could probably, yes, certainly buy that at a grocery store for cheaper, but it was the joy of doing it, interacting with it. So there's the joy of gardening with this type of hydroponic device without as much of the work.
Sure. It's realistic, I think, is what you're trying to say, right? Like initially, when I became obsessed with plants, I probably had too many, right? And it was like, I don't know what these all need, right? At a certain point. And I have found kind of the middle ground, like this is what makes me feel good. This is what feels alive in my house, is what I connect to. And sure, I could buy fake plants, but it's not the same experience for me to connect and enjoy and smell once in a while. I'm sure your garden smells really good too in the kitchen.
Just touch everything. And like I'll be cooking, I'm like, and I'm like, I'll just grab this and put thyme on this. I mean, like, like it's a connective thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that goes right back to kind of our conversation about like attachment and connection, right? And that can be, obviously you have with humans too, but like it's okay to have with our dog, with our plants, with our garden, right? I think that's what life is worth kind of being a part of.
I think that's what we were probably spending a lot of our times doing before technology, and the way we were probably spending a lot of time in community and taking care of things, life.
I agree. Life is a good way of doing it. You are very good about turning off social media, though, compared to most people. It is impressive.
Thank you. Well, I've had to learn the hard way. It can be something that's very all-consuming, and can affect your mental health. And I saw how that
100%.
happened with me firsthand. I see how that affects a lot
Oh.
of people firsthand. So I try and develop healthy boundaries with it.
No, I think it's smart. I remember when I saw in your kind of questionnaire at the beginning, screen time, I'm like, what the heck does that have to do with nutrition, right? But it's wellness. That's what it is. When I really looked at it and took a step back from it, I was like, oh, this is wellness. So
I'm also just trying to get a sense of like how much time are people spending with technology in their day, not from a judgy place, but just trying to get a sense, like is some, you know,
sure.
and try and see how that affects certain trends that I see on my end.
Sure. No, it makes sense. Is there anything I was going to ask you just about like podcasts and books that you recommend for people, either from like a wellness or a nutrition kind of standpoint, or as someone that's a community member been continuing to find out who you are in the world, you know?
Well, I really like the Andrew Huberman podcast.
Mhm.
He's really great. He's like he's like a PhD scientist, works at Stanford, like gives I really particularly liked his episode on alcohol and the impact that alcohol has on your body. That was a
Okay.
really great episode, just about trying to like help people understand. You know, people will probably, you know, will engage with alcohol at different
Sure.
points in their lives in different ways. And he just really just comes at it from this like really scientific, like this is how this impact is, and this is what happens if you're
Wow.
pregnant, and this is how this affects your brain, and this is how it affects your serotonin. And I've never had a conversation around alcohol or what listed anything where I learned so much about the subject. So I definitely recommend that for everyone. Being sober curious right now is very in, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's great as well. I think it's great as well. And that's kind of what started you on your own kind of sober curious journey, right? Yeah.
For me, it was just I have done these 1 month off drinking. I've done like
Mhm.
dry January pretty much 10 years straight. I started doing it in 2013. I don't know, even before that, 2012, 2013, no, 2013. And I always be like, oh, as soon as I kind of like started getting into a rhythm with it, I'd be like, oh, it's over. And would just kind of go back to, you know, participating and drinking and
Mhm.
socializing in those ways. And I've heard of people who've done like a year off, and I'd always been like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then finally I was turning 35 last year, and I was like, I'm gonna do this as part of like as like a gift
Sure.
to myself. And I learned a lot in the process, and now would still identify as being very sober curious, but like last time I went out to dinner and I didn't order a glass of wine, but I wanted to try my friends, you know, and I
Sure.
like have a sip. And I was like, that was good for me for last on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, for sure. I totally get that one. Was it hard to stay sober for the whole year for you?
I
Was it
think when I had
challenging?
decided was doing it, I like knew that I would finish it.
Sure.
And there were certain moments. I went through a big breakup last year. Big things kind of happened. And even in
Wow.
those moments, I wasn't like, oh, I'm now gonna drink. I'd just be like, oh, well, like interesting that I'm navigating this with this, and then like
Yeah.
let's see this as a gift, and kind of
Yeah.
use that for continued steam to explore and learn
Sure.
about myself.
And I think that is kind of what you've said, like your wellness perspective and lens or philosophy, I should say is a better way of putting it, is reframing your relationships with things, right? Reframing your relationship with your own mental health, with maybe church, with food, with alcohol. I mean, it
Social
really is
media,
yeah, all of it. And not, I'm serious from not a shame lens. It's not like I need to stay sober. I'm a bad guy. Like, it's like, I'm curious what this is going to feel like. Actually, I'm curious what it's going to feel like to be in a really hard breakup without alcohol, right? Like, it's not like, well, now it's my excuse to drink.
yeah, totally. You know, that's a good
Yeah,
point. Like I think this is something that I feel like you're pointing out something that is, I don't know if it's unique to me, but it's something I like to do. You know, I've tried doing this thing right now where I basically only really use social media 1 day a week. And then I'm offline the rest of the week, focus on my work, focus on my relationships. And then I come back once a week and I'm like, here's what I've been up to. Here's a video.
wow,
You know, sometimes like I'd like went to this restaurant opening last night, so I wanted to be on Instagram a little bit longer, and so I like documented that experience. It's
sure,
like, you know, it was a great opportunity to go and try something before it opened, and so I want to support them, and so I use my platform in that way. But otherwise, like,
yeah.
try not to like make this an extension of like how I have to move through the world constantly.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. No, I agree. I mean, anecdotally, it's also like heartbreaking when I go to like dinner with people and I see the table over, like everyone's on their phone. And I'm like, talk to the person across the table, right? Like these are the moments you'll regret not connecting when you get old. Like that's how I feel like connect, right? Like you can do this at
connect.
home. Yeah, for sure. So I like that. I think of my kind of questions, we covered everything, unless I know I've already asked you if there's anything else, but I just want to make sure there's nothing kind of that you feel you've shared a ton. I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it. So I really do. I'm going to totally add your social profiles if that's okay with you. I know you'll see once a week.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you'll see me a bit more, but yeah, I
Okay.
think that'd be great. I really enjoyed our discussion and, having a chance to chat with people, with you again, like I've enjoyed our time working together, and hopefully this information can just help people, find their way to a path to, self-improvement, feeling better, whatever that is.
I love that. I love that. And you are still accepting clients, or is it kind of more?
You could still book a one-off session
Okay.
on my site for a consultation, and that's sort of like the best way to work with me right now in a nutrition aspect. If you're interested in hydroponics, shoot me a question. I'd be happy to chat with you about the garden. And I'm creating fun stuff online just for fun. So you can find me on Instagram. I have a TikTok. Sometimes I post on there too.
Yeah, I must feel freeing to just do Instagram for fun these days, by the way.
Very freeing. I feel very liberated in so many ways in my life. If I could end this call having people in terms of the journey that I've been on in the last couple of years and where I sort of am now and how I've landed and how I feel in my own skin, I really do feel liberated and free in so many ways.
I love that. I couldn't have asked you to end on a better note naturally. I'm not even going to try to recap it. It was, liberated and free is just kind of a beautiful note. I'm really genuinely, as a human being, happy for you.
Thank you.